Welcome back to Sawbones Barbecue. I'm your host, Old Sawbones, and with me on the camera, as always, is FT.
Who the fuck is this?
It's Todd.
What the fuck is he doing here?
He's running the video camera.
Fuck.
Take it easy, Roy. Today we are doing monster beef ribs. So this is a really fun cook. Aside from being delicious, it's really, really easy. So if you're new at this is a great thing to try. It's kind of hard to mess it up. If you're capable of running a smoker at a certain temperature and checking the temperature of the meat, you're capable of doing this cook. It's really, really easy. As ever, we talk about the meats, the techniques, and the equipment. And on any given cook, one may be way more important than the other. Today, the meat is the most important thing. The technique is super easy. The equipment is whatever smoker you like, but what's really important is the meat. So this is not necessarily easy to find. This cut is called plate ribs or beef short ribs. You'll see it under a whole bunch of different names. If you're trying to find it and you're talking to a butcher, it's the 123A cut, that's the USDA code. So if you're trying to figure out how to find this and the butcher's like, what do you mean? What kind of beef ribs are you talking about? These are 123A or plate ribs, better known as short ribs. So if you're lucky enough to find them at your store, that's great. Most stores aren't gonna have them just on the shelf, so you kind of have to look around for them. These particular ribs come from Snake River Farms, which is my favorite place to get beef. These are a hybrid Wagyu crossed with Angus. So they call that American Wagyu for what it's worth. But Snake River Farms, in my opinion, is just about the best beef you can get. I actually like it better than actual Wagyu in some ways. So if you want to make it easy, go to snakeriverfarms.com, order yourself a rack. Fair warning, they're not cheap, but you get what you pay for. If you look closely at these ribs, there's a really nice intramuscular marbling, and that's what we're looking for. If you find any old cut at the store where the meat looks really lean but then has a slab of fat on top of it, that's not good. You're gonna end up with tough meat. So what you really wanna see is that intramuscular marbling. If you get them from Snake River Farms, you're set. These are super high quality. If you're gonna look for them on your own, I would say try to get USDA Prime at a minimum. It definitely does make a difference, and the results you're gonna get are much better if you have Prime or above. So anyway, enough about the meat. The point is you need to source it carefully. It's not just any old meat will do. Once you have a good slab of meat like this, the cook's really easy. You just put some seasoning on it, smoke it, and that's that. In terms of seasoning, in the past I've done the Meat Church Holy Cow rub, which is really delicious. Today we're gonna try a similar one from a different company. This is from Willow Seasonings. This is their high elevation rub. The ingredients you want for this are salt, pepper, and garlic. That's about it. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Salt, pepper, and garlic should be the base of your rub. This particular one has some chipotle powder and ground coffee in it too. So we're gonna see what that does for us. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the meat seasoned and we'll get it ready for the smoker. Whether or not you use a binding agent is debatable. Some people say you don't need it. I think it's helpful. So I put at least a little bit of olive oil. You can also do a light coating of mustard. So today we're gonna do just olive oil, which is easy enough just to help that rub stick. And I get the meat side as well as all the other sides. Another little technical point, these ribs have a very tough membrane on the back. When you're doing pork ribs, you tend to take the membrane off. That's kind of considered a standard thing for pork ribs. For beef ribs, I don't. This is such a hefty cut that you're really not gonna be eating anything off the back. All the meat comes off the front of the bone when you eat it. And that membrane is really the only thing holding these together. They get super tender when they're done and they would literally fall apart if you took that off. So I don't bother to peel that off, I leave it. I also don't bother to season that backside because you don't end up eating it, and with that thick membrane, the seasoning's not gonna penetrate anyway. I leave it on there and just focus the seasoning on all the other aspects of the meat. And it can take a really nice generous coating, so you don't wanna be chintzy with the rub, really just go after it. I think it's kind of hard to get too much on there. We wanna make a really nice bark on this. So we'll work all the sides and get a nice thick coating. All right, so we've got a nice coating of rub on the meat. We're all seasoned. We're ready to put it on the smoker. I'm gonna cook it at 250. You could go as low as 225 or as high as 275, depending on how much time you have. And then another variable is whether or not you wrap it partway through. This is gonna hit a stall much like a brisket would in the 160s. If you're in a hurry, you could wrap it in foil and that might shave an hour off your cook time. If you want the most rich bark possible with a little bit of crunch to it, then you may want to leave it unwrapped. That's totally optional. So we're going to throw it on at 250 and see how we do in terms of our cook time, and I may or may not wrap it depending on how long it's taken. Okay, we're back. We did the ribs for about 8 hours at 250, and we hit a little bit of a stall around 180 degrees, so I decided to go ahead and do a wrap. That's going to give you a little bit less of a crunchy bark, but helps finish the cook in a timely fashion. So I'm going to go ahead and check the temperature. Our probes that are in the meat are telling us we're at about 201, which is close. I'm hoping to get to 203 or more. So I'm just going to stop and probe a little bit and see where we are. 202, 203. So we're getting some pretty good numbers. All right, I'm going to take out the Traeger probe and get this unwrapped so we can start crisping up the bark a little bit. Just throw some gloves on so I don't fry my hands. And when you get toward the end, when it's almost done, you'll start to see a little bit of give in the meat, where it's just got a little bit of jiggle and kind of bounces when you touch it. That's a very good sign. Okay, we're back. The ribs finished at a temperature of 203 degrees, and then we rested them for just about exactly an hour, and they're down to 150. It's very important to rest them for a while. If you cut them when they're hot off the smoker, they're gonna dry out. So for me, 150 is a pretty reasonable temperature to start cutting. So we're ready to go. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can just take a chef's knife and slide it down the back of the ribs and take the entire slab of meat off, and then you can slice it across the grain, kind of like you would with a brisket. Or if you have something with a little bit more of a Crocodile Dundee vibe, you know, this would be an appropriate time. So I'll say, that's not a knife. This is a knife.
That's a knife.
Fun fact, this little toy was given to me by Tom Atwood. And I thought about it after he gave it to me, like, should I be worried that a foot surgeon gave me this weaponry? I don't know. Anyway, Tom said he wasn't much using it and he gave it to me. So if ever I have an excuse to use the scimitar butcher knife, now is it. So without further ado, let's see how we did. I'll try not to take a finger off while I'm at it with this ridiculous knife. So I'm just gonna go right down the bone so I can kind of serve them with more of a caveman vibe. That looks real nice. We got a good bark on it. Got some real good color in there. Love that. These are just about fall off the bone tender. And when all is said and done, you can see from the side the fat rendered out real nicely. You've got real tender meat with a little bit of give to it. It's got a very nice smoke ring and a good bark on it. I don't think I can resist the opportunity to go full caveman on it and just get into one of these. This looks too good, so I'm just gonna give it a go. Oh yeah. That's excellent. I got just a little bit of crunch on the bark. I left it uncovered just for about 10 or 15 minutes after it came out of the foil. That prevents any sogginess. So it's got just a nice little crunch on the bark. Great smoke flavor. We got to wrap it up. I have serious business to take care of here. That's delicious. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more barbecue videos from Sawbones. I'll be back with FT for another video next week.